you say you've read the
So
judgment.
we are not late in making
have you also been reading comments from Bola Ajibola, who is a retired judge in the ICJ and former Minister of Justice? He says, part of what he has said while speaking on this matter, says that Nigeria sent a note to Cameroon in 1961, admitting and conceding ownership of Bakassi to Cameroon. He also says that our map throughout 1960s and 70s was always indicating the exercise of Bakassi out of our own land as part of what belongs to Cameroon. He says, so we willingly gave this out to Cameroon.
Now, incidentally, and by God's grace and providence, by the grace of the people of Itu Federal Constituency, Akwa Ibom State, at that time, I was in the House of Representatives, and I worked with Judge Bola Ajibola. I was in the committee that were hearing these matters and hearing the stage of the implementation, because Judge Bola Ajibola represented Nigeria in the implementation. And I think, at the time he was a consultant and to Nigeria on this matter, and he's well versed in this matter. I also admit that Judge Bola Ajibola was Attorney General of the Federation and later a member of the World Court. Now, that I have the map as attached to us by President Yaradua, because in his letter asking us to ratify the treaty in the National Assembly, he attached the map. It is the map as presented to the court, as it were, but not the map as which Nigeria ought to have presented. And again, even the map as presented to the court was misinterpreted, because there were basic facts which were not made clear to the court. Now, we in the Senate have studied this matter, studied the records, and I had to go back to my archives of legislative records and bring out all the documents, as it were. In 2000, and the documents which I knew were presented to the court 2001, before the judgment was delivered in 2002, because I represented it to federal constituency, and Bakassi, we were interested in Bakassi in Akwa Ibom State. Now, I followed the matter diligently, and so we took the map of the then Adhered province, then in Akwa Ibom State. We took the map, as it were, of Oron province. We took the map of the Calabar region. We took even the map at the time of the 1811 treaty. We took the map of the 1913 Anglo-German treaty. I reviewed it when I was in the House of Representatives, and I had to go back to that when this matter arose. And I am of the opinion that these facts, as it is, were not presented. And that is what the Senate said. Having read all this, said, look, fresh facts have emerged. And yes, no matter how urgent it may be, we have to make a case.
Yeah.
I remember the submission made by the learned Senate leader, Victor Ndomaigba SAN, that it is better for us to appeal, and that is the law.
Yes, Senator, so we get that point, but you haven't responded.
Than not to
appeal
Senator,
at all. Is it
because
wrong
we would have
what
discovered
Bola
that
Ajibola said?
We would have succeeded had we appealed. And again, we make it obvious to the Attorney General of the Federation that there is, or the consultant or persons who may be engaged, that this is a matter which there is a provision for preliminary application.
Yeah, we get that point, Senator.
Unless it is granted, the preliminary application is granted, the court will not admit the review. And it has to be granted within the time allowed by the statute. Yeah, and if it is acceptable to you, I may read the provision of the
just a moment before you read that
of the International Court of Justice, so that Nigerians watching this program may appreciate, if you agree.
Just a moment before you read that part of it. You haven't answered directly. Was Bola Ajibola wrong to have said what he said, which I read to you?
Yeah. Now, what His Excellency Judge Bola Ajibola said is that is an opinion, because he was involved in that matter. At this time, we have to be positive about all we have. And we are saying that the position we presented were misunderstood or misrepresented. And we take, and I submit that I do not agree with the Judge Bola Ajibola on this matter. Because I remember that I, myself, himself, and other members of the House of Representatives who were in the then ad hoc committee on treaties met him in hearing room 2 of the House of Representatives after the judgment was delivered. He addressed us in hearing room 2 on many times. In fact, at that time was when he made one profound statement, which I still remember, that at a time like this, it is golden to speak less. He said Nigeria should not speak more. Nigeria should speak less on this matter while we tarry and before we went for the Green Tree Agreement. Therefore, I personally and other members of the House of Representatives were involved in discussions with Bola Ajibola on this matter, and we did not agree on any position that is different from what the Senate now stands. And of course, it was disagreement on this matter that made the House of Representatives and the National Assembly not to ratify the treaty as sent to us by President Obasanjo and as again forwarded to us by President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua of blessed memories.
Well, perhaps, Senator, you should also clarify for us, because all of these documents everyone has been talking about, including that which Professor Walter Fonagoro also mentioned, date as far back as 1884, 1885, 1886. But quite frankly, some Nigerians are worried. They say, let's see if we can actually talk about the present and invite some people to speak on this matter. And one of such is Nigeria's former head of state, Yakubu Gowon. He's been mentioned times without number on the same Bakassi issue. Is the Senate thinking of inviting him to give his own side to this particular impasse?
Well, I will not say that the Senate is thinking, is thinking of that or not. But at this time, the matter, there is a judgment pending and subsisting. And it does not matter what any Nigerian who was involved in this matter comes to tell us now. It does not reverse the situation. What will address the situation is if we approve the International Court of Justice invoking the provisions of the statute and ask them to revisit the judgment, and also looking at of course, even in addition to asking a revisit of the judgment, part of what the International Court of Justice is set up to do is to look at treaties or treaties between a people. Now, a treaty which is not ratified, the International Court of Justice can also interpret and say, if it is not ratified by the municipal parliament of the affected country, or state party, is it a law? So there are many matters that we can ask the International Court of Justice to do. We have gone beyond the stage of asking Gowon why, or of asking Gowon for history. We would have asked former head of state Gowon, General Gowon, or invited him as a witness in that court, or asked him to make a written presentation. At this time, you cannot take evidence after judgment unless you are talking about jurisdiction. And we're talking about new facts on this matter. If we apply and we are given the leave to present the new facts we have in the court, only then can we invite General Gowon to state what he knows, and we call him as a witness to the case of Nigeria in that court. But at this time, for us to make it as a domestic matter, as a parliamentary matter, I think it doesn't help us anywhere.
If I may come in here, people are asking, why have we left it till too late? Because there's also the political angle of, or the judicial angle of the Supreme Court's ruling that automatically makes Cross River a non-littoral state as a consequence of our ceding to Bakassi. So is that one of the new facts that have emerged in this particular matter? Because all of a sudden, it seems 10 years after this judgment was delivered, we suddenly remember that, we shouldn't have ceded Bakassi to Cameroon in the very first instance.
Please, this doesn't have at all anything at all to do to do with the Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court judgment was a judgment between two contending states on the maritime boundary, on the littoral status of one of them, and who has access to the sea. It does not have anything to do with that case. This is a case as to who owns Bakassi between Nigeria and Cameroon, and not who owns Bakassi between the two contending parties in that suit before the Supreme Court. So it is not the judgment of the Supreme Court in the reference case that has woken up interest in this matter. It is that it is the way that the Attorney General of the Federation and some Nigerians have spoken on this matter that we cannot revisit it. That is why we said that we should add the voice as the Senate, as the legislative body to say, look, please let's apply for a review of this judgment.